Hi YouTubers, it's early in the morning on July 16th, 2026, and as you may remember, I live in Maine, and well, we have had a tragic incident in Biddeford, the murder of an immigrant by our thuggish government. The tactics they use, they come from political hysteria that, I mean, I could really see this coming from way back when Trump was first running. I always voted against this. When Donald Trump first ran, I switched parties to the Democrats because I knew he was going to get the nomination because I remembered the kind of people that I met in the Republican Party who were like I knew that was their guy. But in this particular video, I want to make a very wide focus on others events and stories I've heard to show a psychological pattern that we see in the kind of people who are okay with what happened to Joan Sebastián Guerrero. My YouTube channel here it's more about my philosophy, and I find like sometimes I can just like better articulate these things in a monologue because it can be hard for even me to get it. And through like comment sections and through other social media, people often are not acting in the good faith. They they just want to yell and argue, and you gotta let them get it out of their system, and I sort of have to do this in a different way, in a more calm way, and a lot of my old videos, like, yeah, I am like getting very emotional, but I'm trying to do this better. I'm trying to improve how I communicate on YouTube. So let's get started with this. First, there's a movie that my mother had us kids watch long back when I was a teenager. So it's called The Color Purple. Oprah Winfrey plays Sophia. And there's this very pushy, inconsiderate white woman kisses her kids without even asking. Her personality is like, get away from me. I mean, no, her personality is like you want her to get away from you. And she's being all gushy, and she's like, do you want to be my maid? And Sophie's like, hell no. She's like, what did you just say to me? Hell no. And watching this and not realizing the situation, not realizing like the time and place, you're, as a kid, you're thinking, oh yeah, she told her. But her husband comes over and is like, how dare you? And I don't remember if she repeats it to him, but he punches her. She falls back onto the hood of the car, and then uh, on the hood of the car, her fist clenches. She punches him right in the face. And, I'm thinking he threw the first punch. But there's all these other white people around, and you would think they'd be on her side. At least I, a white boy from Maine, would think that they would be on her side. Guess whose side they were on? I mean, it just seems to make so much sense that they would be on her side. But people didn't learn their lesson that early. You know what really gets me? They should have been on her side. They weren't. And a cop came over and hit her with the butt of the gun, and cut to when she's let out of prison and old and gray. She didn't even remember most of her family anymore. Um, Another story, a true story. There was this young white man from in 2015, in the summer of 2015, in South Carolina, had a bowl cut, and you see photos of him. He looks like he ate crayons. Um, and after the incident, people online, they commented about like people who knew him. They commented about like how he's like he people at school like were suspicious of him, like he might do something, and he did. You know, he blamed black people for gang violence and violence against white people. Like a black mugger murders a white person somewhere. Oh, he blames black people. Every once in a sometimes like there's white people who murder black people. I mean, like our impoverished, desperate society, and poor people hurt poor people in a society that trains us to be antisocial. So he takes a gun to a Bible study of black people. He murders 9 people and injures 1, and then flees across state lines. Well, now he's got the death penalty. Like, stupid kid didn't even do a plea deal or anything, like, you know. But that's another part of this pattern that I'm noticing, is that the people stupidity is part of the pattern. Um, but you would think, like, you'd be smart enough to know it's not about race. Like, if he wanted to go after gangsters, why didn't he go look for gangsters? Why did he look for black people at a freaking church? Okay, so, um, the Trump administration cooked up this scheme for ICE in Maine called Catch of the Day, and they brought about, um, they went after immigrants, people that we knew. Um, like, they find out, like, someone's not a citizen, or like in the process of becoming a citizen, or they're an asylum seeker and they have a court date, um, or they have refugee status or a green card or whatever. Like, lots of people, like, they can't legally deport them, but they can, like, hold them and tell them, oh, we're going to help you get your court date. And they take all their stuff, and then they, like, lose stuff, and they're like, oops, and I guess you're going to miss your court date. Um, and all this bullshit stuff, all this bullshit incompetence, and um, it's so people keep, like, blaming people keep like I in the online spaces, I interact with a bunch of chuds who are like, well, we gotta have ICE because of all these dangerous people here. This, see, here's a list of people who were murdered by immigrants, and then I bring up the name of, like, a mother from the Congo and her teenage son who's missing, and she has a pending asylum case, and she has a legal right to work here, and they took her kid, or they took her, like, I don't remember the specifics. It was like 6 months ago. But, I bring up the name, like, so how do you justify this? And then they come up with this list of people who were murdered by undocumented immigrants. Her case, like, she is an asylum seeker fleeing from a country that's in, like, civil war. Maybe because she's an asylum seeker, and she's not applying to be a citizen, but she's looking for a safe place to stay until her country stabilizes, because that's asylum. That's not necessarily permanent, but, and Maine's like one of the safest places in the world. So what does that, all this grievance over here, what does that have to do with her? Well, anyway, fast forward to today. Um, after ice shoots one of our neighbors in the head. Yes, he is our neighbor, and we should care about him, and we do care about him. And we saw many people show up in solidarity and condolences for this loss. This loss of a husband, a father, a neighbor, and potentially even a fellow Mainer if you choose to stay here. Murdered by people who are probably from some other state who are resentful that about Mainers welcoming people who are brown and don't look like them or whatever. Or, but there were other folks who drove halfway across the state to these protests to counter-protest them. Very few people who did that, but so full of hate. And then there's others when, like, we're angry about ICE being incompetent, about being extrajudicial, and about just outright violating the law and acting recklessly and dangerously and being a waste of our money that we could have spent on, like housing or healthcare or something. We're angry. We're hurt. And then they have the audacity to not look into the details of the case, to be like, we're overreacting. Is it just few people in chuds? Just very few people who we have a legitimate grievance. And then they post online, here's a list of people who were murdered by immigrants. Are you seeing a pattern here? Now, I think, like, in the long run, like, the distance between the end of World War II and in the 1960s, when denazification in Germany was actually starting to take effect permanently, the first generations who were not actually involved in Nazism were coming of age and asking their parents the hard questions, because Germany did try to denazify. It was a complicated process because the Germans just basically, the former Nazis just undid a lot of the denazification early on. But in the 60s, it really took effect. They had to answer to their own families for what they did. We're a little bit better off in the United States because we have pretty strong institutions. It took the Nazis only 53 days to destroy democracy. And getting it back required a lot of external intervention. But democracy is not dead in the United States. And so we'll get out of this much sooner. There's just no way. They don't have the kinetic force to be as permanent as Nazism was. MAGA just doesn't have it, the energy. Um, and and already it's obvious to us. Unfortunately, some people did die in the process. I knew it was going to happen. But we know what happened, and we're seeing how people the gap between how people react to it. And some people, they are so focused on their grievance, their anger at like certain categories of people, and their mistakes in their associations. Like the way I look at them is like the chuds and the thugs, they're the same. And the victims of either of those groups are the same. But they're more like their us and them mentality is more um, the whites, probably it's the whites, where they would be like the Americans and the immigrants. Because they're stupid. They're leading with their emotions, but in the long run, I think that, I mean, history is recording itself right now. So, yeah, for the rest of you, like, put your observations out there, whether you put them in a journal or put them here on YouTube. Put them out there. Don't get too bogged down in arguing with people, but indeed, take note of this pattern. Take note of the pattern, like between these stories, these events. Like, I would, I would expect people to, just be like, oh, I get it. Well, some people are never going to get it, so speak to the ones who do get it, and they will put this in the history books. Um, my condolences to Biddeford and to the family of Joan Sebastián Guerrero.